The best scene in television history, in my opinion, happens in season 1 of True Detective, episode 4, right in the middle. The buildup and stakes in this scene are so high because we know that the main character genuinely doesn't care if he lives. And there's also technically two main characters, Marty and Rust, and the fact that Rust can die and the show could continue, it heightens the stakes. And the fact that it was all shot in one take makes it feel more organic and more like you're there. So in that sense, it's also very technically impressive. But the main part I enjoy the most is the intensity and chaos of it all. It's like watching a ticking time bomb about to explode, and then it does, which then the main character has to adapt to this new exploded terrain, and he does. Yeah, I'm really excited to show more True Detective. Look how many notes I've taken on this show. It's a lot, but this is definitely one of my favorite scenes in all of television history, and I'm really excited to share with you, so let's hope HBO doesn't take it down. The reason that this scene is so effective is because you actually cannot tell if they're going to kill Rust. Like, Rust has talked up so much that he does not care about his life. He says that the stakes are pretty low. I'll just take a bullet to the head. That scene is really phenomenal for setting up the events at the end of episode 4. And the fact that it happens at the end of episode 4, there is an expectation from the audience that something major is going to happen. There are actually always two stories happening within any narrative. First one is the actual events in the plots of the story, what the characters are feeling, what they are going through. And the second is what the audience is feeling and what they're going through in reaction to what the story is doing. I think any great narrative will keep this in mind. I remember the first time I binged the show, episode 3 up to episode 4, like the beginning of episode 4, maybe the middle of episode 4, I was definitely engaged. I was brought into it, but I was at a certain point getting to that edge of boredom. And I don't know if I'm the exact person for this show because it is like one of my favorite shows ever, but breaking that tension at that time is just absolutely perfect for what I was feeling while watching that narrative. Like, don't get me wrong, I was still heavily invested, but I think that's the point. I think it's the balance between the investment, the building up, the slow tension building, and then making sure to keep the audience engaged with complete absurdity, complete chaos. Set them up, then watch it fall. If you haven't seen the show, I'm going to give a little summary. So True Detective is about a whodunit story at the end of the day, with the GOAT, Matthew McConaughey, and Woody Harrelson working together to find out who murdered Dora Lang. That's the inciting incident where they discover the dead body in a field, Dora Lang, in which there are clear signs to the occult from the fact that Dora Lang's body is decorated. There's tied stick effigies around her dead body. There is an antler on her head in a crown. Very clearly something else is going on, which sparks the mystery and causes the investigators to pursue further. And we find out that there is corruption within the government, within the task force. And through Rust's investigation, we find out that it is, in fact, a cult, and that the senator who becomes the governor, sheriffs, are all connected to this cult. And what they do is they go around the poor areas of the bayou and they murder children, and they probably do other things with them as well. But this is essentially the objective, is to find the cult leaders and take them down. Quite a valiant fight. And, this has provided purpose for Rust, who's this really interesting character. He's completely traumatized, which I'll mention later, but he's got synesthesia. There's a sense of superstition around Rust because he's connected to something spiritual, but he's denying it. He's stuck in this pessimism, denying any sense of spirituality, even though he is the most spiritual, the most supernatural we see throughout the entire show. It's quite ironic. But the only other person that has this supernatural sense is the killer, Errol. And so they are tied together within this battle of good versus evil. And on the side of the show, we got Woody Harrelson as Marty, and there's a really interesting conversation there within the show about ignorance versus enlightenment, as shown through the contrast between Marty and Rust, because Rust absolutely denies ignorance at every single step. He is a philosopher, where Marty is pretty okay just living his life and not questioning a lot of things. He's a religious person, so he's part of a religion. And we learn that he is the high school star football player. He got the cheerleader wife, and now, for some reason, he's completely unhappy with his life. He's cheating on his wife, and he doesn't even know why. Because when he's caught, he says, I don't know why I do these things, but he does. He just continues to do it. And it's that lack of introspection that is his biggest downfall. And so the stage is set, the pieces are all there, and here within this show is one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen out of any single series. The scene. The tension builds as Russ is taken across the bayou, away from Marty and his protection. And in this moment, the cinematography starts shifting, becomes more hazy, more loose, filled with more emotion. It's more expressive. The colors lose its saturation and start blending into each other. He's in Ginger's trailer across the bayou, and this is when chaos first reveals its head. The noise of a man in the bathroom banging on the wall, screaming and crying. He's a hostage. They begin talking about the plan, bringing out 4 policemen attire. They got 1 drug dealer to find the stash house, and any plan beyond that is stricken down. Russ is only willing to do it if he gets confirmation from Ginger that he'll vouch for him when talking to DeWall so that he can get to Reggie and solve the case of dead and missing children. His only olive branch to humanity. If you haven't seen True Detective, Rust lost his daughter in a tragic car accident, and losing all meaning in his life, he searched through philosophy to find a reason to keep going. And he found it in the oldest fight, good versus evil. Ginger agrees, and the plan begins. Energy builds as they drive into the Houston block, with the bleeding drug dealer in the back, and police helicopters already on scene, because this is a notorious drug-addled community. Rust explains to Tiger, the drug dealer, that you have 2 ways of looking at it. You can die and lose your drugs, or you can live and make more. Rust gets out of the car on the back side of the house, and he checks his pulse. It's a way to check if he's scared, because the last time we saw him do this, he was threatened by Marty for disrespecting his relationship with his wife. If there's a physical reaction, then he must be feeling something. Now, something beautiful about this scene at 49:05 to them exiting the house at 51:55, it's all one take. The repetitive hip-hop music playing at a higher frequency, increasing tension, and the colors shift from the dark greenish hues of the Houston blocks at night to the hazy and chaotic flurry of the hot-boxed house, where again, the colors begin to shift into each other as we lose definition and the literal. Russ clears the house and finds a child playing games, takes him and puts him into the bathtub and tells him to stay and wait and lay down, protecting the innocent. Rust returning to the heart and literal center of the chaos, attempting to control the situation. Easy, he says, like trying to control a vicious beast. He controls one disaster as he makes the drug dealer open up the stash, revealing it was booby-trapped with a grenade pin tied to the entrance. Somewhere in here, you realize the music has stopped. The repeating beat of the hip-hop music that we unconsciously leaned on in this time of complete chaos has somewhere disappeared, replaced with the yelling of a growing crowd on the outside of the house and Ginger's goons giving threats to the people they have power over. All bets are off when one of Ginger's goons pulls the trigger, killing a hostage, and another one breaks the window, sending lead to the crowd outside. Russ knows that all bets are off at this point, and he has to get Ginger out of that house. And we see his competency again as he thrives in this chaotic environment. He's embraced the chaos throughout his entire life after the death of his daughter, and it's culminating in situations like this where he has so much experience. So he first clears the back of the house, opening the door, looking outside, sees, okay, no one's here, turns around, punches Ginger in the stomach, gets him incapacitated, sends him out the door, turns around because one of the goons of Ginger noticed that he's attacking Ginger. He's turning, he says, I knew it, and starts fighting Rust, but he successfully counterattacks him, accidentally shooting the hostage that they originally came with, and leaves the house and grabs Ginger. We see as the Houston Project gang comes in and clears the house, killing the rest of Ginger's goons as they escape. We get this beautiful transition and beautiful because it's sneaky, where the camera pans upwards at the police helicopter we saw when they were driving in. And this is where the scene ends. And Ginger entering a house behind the house that they just robbed, where he calls Marty, gets a pickup point located, and through more chaos and more struggle, Rust does get out of the project block successfully with Ginger, and now he's able to find Reggie Ledoux. This was ultimately an act of vigilantism. And there's a point that this show outright supports vigilantism. This is self-apparent if you watch the show, but there's never a point where they question what they're doing, really. Even Marty goes along with it, not questioning that Cole stole a pound of drugs from his lockup at the police station. And maybe I'm ignoring the fact that the show is saying that the system itself is broken. The police aren't true detectives. They're corrupt. The cult has gotten to them, and members high up in the government, the Senate, the governor is a person who is part of the cult. So how do you be a true detective? How do you really engage in this fight between good and evil, the oldest fight? And if you didn't know, I'm referencing it as the oldest fight because at the end of the series, this is Rust's biggest revelation. After taking out Reggie Ledoux and exposing to the world his findings of corruption in this cult and all the information he has, in coming out of this coma, he was sent in after his battle with Reggie. He comes to the revelation that he's engaged in this oldest battle of good versus evil, and that compassion is the answer, and that good is actually winning. He looks at the sky and says to Marty, "That's funny, because at one point it was all darkness and there was no light, and I would say that the light is doing pretty well." I love this scene. This is an absolutely beautiful send-off to this amazing show, where funny enough, we see Marty and Rust's roles switch, where Marty is the cynic and Rust is the compassion-filled individual. Compassion and lacking ignorance. He's enlightened by his true purpose in the world. Maybe that's where true came from in the title of True Detective. Because maybe to be a true detective, you have to be a true person. And to do that, you need to find out who your true inner self is. And I think in one way or another, we're all confronted with this question of who really am I? Recently, I got a job at this really prestigious company, and for some reason, I wasn't happy. I was faced with complete and utter panic. I realized I was procrastinating something very, very dear and very important to me. And it's this channel. I realized that I wanted to be a YouTuber because, throughout my entire life, without getting too specific, YouTube was all I've had. Like that parasocial connection between me and a YouTuber like PewDiePie. I'm pretty young, by the way, so PewDiePie was in his prime, and I'm sure this resonates with a lot of you guys out there, but having nothing else, YouTube was still there for me. And I know that relationship between me and the YouTubers when I was younger wasn't unhealthy. It actually got me through a lot. So I want to be able to provide that for others, because when you have no one else, even a parasocial relationship can be really beneficial. So if you liked this video, then please hit that like and subscribe button. You got to this far, you must have liked the video. Come on.